Good day, everyone. This is Group 1, and here's our voiceover PPT of manuscript that talks about historical revisionism.
In our generation, the media attempts to mislead the public with fake news and the idea that history cannot be changed because it is allegedly full of lies. Thus, history can be rewritten. History evolves and changes, subjective, conceivable, and relative. Historical revision is a huge issue that our country is thinking about after the 2022 election because of the landslide voting of President Marcos Jr. against former Vice President Leni Robredo. Historians like Filomeno Aguilar, Rigoberto Tiglao, Jemmy Gatdula, and Van Ivernas stated the reasons why history needs to be revised. First, it is a social science that attempts at the most reasonable interpretation of what happened, and it can only be disproved or falsified but never proven as true. For instance, the Filipino actress Ella Cruz likened history to the slang word chismis, which made noise and triggered the public to react. On the other hand, Tiglao contradicts that the anti-Marcos introduced themselves as scholars who are expert in the field. According to Foucault and Father Ranhilio, history is changing and contingent. It has no particular direction. History includes facts but not entirely true. The information could hold true, but we always need to question and cross-examine it again and again to take a direct context. So these reasons are filtered by the six shifts such as theory, standpoint, motive, influences, selected shreds of evidence, and available evidence. The great mind theory, the human nature theory, and the great people theory are the three most important historical theories that are subject to change. The great mind theory is interpreted as some idea forces like reason, prime minds, or the nationalist is the motive principle of history that strives and draws it ahead and forward. The human nature theory demonstrates the invariant human constitution and character traits, exemplifying and reflecting the course of history and subsequently molding and remolding social structures, while the great people theory is defined as some aristocratic elite favored nation or best race alone makes history in the process of asserting a superior position over lower, marginalized, and underprivileged classes, nations, and races. There were neither strong arguments nor facts that held the issues against the Marcoses as truth. Their wealth was said to be from the Tallanog family, which is still unknown and no record of anything from the history. Yet Marcos is known as one of the richest men in the whole world in the Marcos era. This is also the year of the Filipinos for being one of the richest countries, or known as the Golden Era. Not until President Marcos Sr. approved martial law because of the crisis arises, increasing criminal and drug rates. Many of his flaws in leadership are being criticized, all the reason for the public to complain. Martial law has a progressive law, and the opposition tries to break the good governance of Marcos by spitting information that is not proven true and is still unknown in history. The Yellow Movement made a move to remove him from his position, which is the start of the EDSA revolution. However, the enlightenment of martial law helps to restore peace to dramatically reduce crime rates and protect the social welfare of the Philippines. Two of the competitive movies today are The Maid in Malacanang and The Katips, which portray the two sides of the story during martial law. These indicate the situation and some details of both the Marcoses and the Filipino rallies, including the black propagandist. The purpose of the historical revision was to uncover the truth of a past event to complete historical panoramas and enrich our understanding of the events that have influenced our current reality. Adjustment requires revising the history, but it doesn't mean that we will change it entirely, rather adjust it to make it right, depending on the needed information. Therefore, we conclude that history can be revised. It is subjective as it was created from a different point of view and is not always consistent, like the true meaning of Marcos wealth and the real history behind martial law.
Magkikita pa ba tayo pagkatapos nito?
Uwi na tayo. Ngayon na.
At saan naman tayo pupunta? Dito kami mamamatay ng daddy mo.
Nagtatapang-tapangan ka! Anak niyo po ako, Dad! I am your son!
Alsa tayo dito. Natatakot na ako eh.
Saan ka natatakot? Sabihin mo nga sa akin, masama ba akong tao?
Step number 2, audience. Here are the external sectoral audience. The first one is the government. The second one is media. The third one is education or schools. Specifically, the students who are still confused about the historical revision. And for our internal departmental audience, we have human resources, production department, and finance. Step number 3, goals or objective. The main goal of this manuscript or documentation is to assert truth about history, specifically the history of martial law and Marcoses. Number 2, to justify the history as being subjective. Number 3, to prove that the martial law was effective after all. After knowing the analysis of the situation, let us now proceed to the most important part of this documentation. Our topic is historical revision. Now, let us proceed to the step number 4, the message. The message has two parts. The focus statement is the first one. After knowing the previous theories, critical definition, and sieves, we may conclude that history is subjective or dynamic and should be the subject to revision. Revisionism shouldn't be an issue or the problem because history ought to be clarified and updated occasionally. In Filipino, marami ang nagsasabi na ang kasaysayan ay unti-unting nagbabago. Sa paglipas ng panahon, ito'y pabago-bago base sa katotohanan sa opinyon ng bawat isa. Kung minsan pa ay sa karanasan at nararamdaman ng tao. Base rin sa ilang mga pag-aaral, ang kasaysayan ay maaaring mabago depende sa tao. To highly support the idea of focus statement that the history should be revised, let us see the message supporting points. One of the best examples that supports the idea of possible historical revision is the issue between two movies that has something to do with martial law and Marcoses. If you're familiar with the movie Katips, this has been making the rounds on social media. The message is all about the negative aspects of the Marcoses and martial law. But this is only because they have depicted victims. They are getting the points of view of acting like a victim in order to demonstrate that fighting against the government is right. As you can see, there is a black propaganda. Kung alam niyo po yung palabas na Katips, makikita dito ang mensahe ng direktor na kung saan pinakikita ang karanasan ng mga sinasabi o nagpapanggap na biktima upang sabihin na ang paglaban o pagtaliwas sa kakayahan ng pamahalaan ay tama. Nandito rin pinakikita ang black propaganda. While Made in Malacanang, the movie, tell us about the civilization and the good government that was demonstrated during the Marcos regime. Whether we choose to see the brighter side or not, ito ang katotohanan sa likod ng martial law at Marcoses. Pinakita ng direktor kung paano naging epektibo at ano ang katotohanan sa likod ng pamamahala ng mga Marcos at sa loob ng martial law. In addition to the fact that the history is matter of opinion, revisions are necessary to protect people's perspective from false information that is harmful and narrow-minded. History is constantly evolving, especially when it has been distorted by a period of time that only cares about activism or negative propaganda.
For step 5, the medium we will use are either YouTube to upload informative videos for the audience to easily understand the history, or Facebook to conduct a seminar or webinar on the subject of historical revision prior to today's era, or TikTok which has a broader audience, and it can be short videos or content creation with a maximum of 3 minutes to achieve our goals. Thank you everyone for listening on our manuscript presentation. Just remember what Michael Crichton said. If you don't know history, then you don't know anything. You are a leaf that doesn't know it is a part of a tree. Thank you.